You are now listening to the Brothers and Lovers Podcast. Welcome.
Come on. Stand up, rise up, rise. What you gonna do about it? Get your mind up. How you gonna move about it? Get your shoulders right. And you get right to it, and we unite. Cause we gotta fight.
Shall I stand by my brother's side? If he wrong, I should tell him why. Enter battle, we should ride. Let the world feel our battle cry.
Stand up, rise up, rise. What you gonna do about it? Get your mind up. How you gonna move about it? Get your shoulders right. And you get right to it, and we unite. Cause we gotta fight. Stand up, rise up. What you gonna do about it? Get your mind up. How you gonna move about it? Get your shoulders right. And you get right to it, and we unite.
Welcome, gentlemen. I would like to welcome everybody to Brothers and Lovers Podcast, episode 7. Haha, we knocking them dead now. Well, I asked my panel of brothers to bring their love for their children, our love for our communities, and our love for our families. Mix that with some passion, sprinkle some facts on that, all to the uncomfortable conversations. Yes. Tonight, well, we have two brothers down. We missing Damo, we missing Brother Harv. We gonna rep for them right now. We gonna do this big, but tonight we got Brother Larry. Go ahead.
Yo. You already know it's Larry Harrison back in the building, brothers and lovers. You know, we doing this for the culture. I do this for all those in the trenches trying to get out the mud. King Noah, Elijah, I love you. It's for you.
Yes. And also we got my brother Ron.
What's going on, brothers? Good to be here tonight. Definitely looking forward to tonight's show. Got some great stuff to discuss. So I'm just glad to be a part of this great thing that we're trying to do.
Yes. Okay. All right. Tonight we're gonna do a little bit different. We're just gonna have an open conversation. Basically the conversation that I want to have with my brothers tonight is about when is the right time to man up. Right? Basically, how we came to this topic came to be. Me and my brothers, we was sitting down, we was talking, trying to come up with topics. And we came up with this. Well, hold on, Ron. Do you want to? Matter of fact, Ron, you go ahead because it was more on you. So.
Okay, no problem. I mean, you know, if for those who may not know, I'm a lawyer by trade. So when you talk to a lawyer, 99% of the time is when things have gone bad. So with that as a background, oftentimes I talk to individuals who've been accused of some form of misconduct. And what we were talking about is assaultive behavior, where someone is accused of putting hands on somebody. So the question always becomes, well, is it ever acceptable? Is there ever a time that you can put hands on somebody? And what prompted us, bringing this to light to discuss this evening was the whole situation with Chris Rock and Will Smith. Everyone has seen it. What we saw is that at a certain point, Will Smith believed that he was defending his wife based on some things that Chris Rock had said, and he went up and put hands on him. And so that led to the question, well, is there such thing as fighting words? Is there ever a time where it's okay to put hands on somebody? And so that's what we wanted to talk about. And that's one of the things I constantly talk about with my clients. Was it okay? And I guess, what we're going to have to talk about tonight is from a legal standpoint, and then also from what we're trying to do is for the culture, for the people, building up our younger guys and younger ladies, and to knowing when it's acceptable to take certain acts. So that's how we got here, brother.
Okay. All right. With that being said, let's go with Larry. Larry, when do you feel? Let's start the conversation. When do you feel it's right to man up?
Oh,
to
man.
get physical.
Man, this is always that thing that, as we discussed prior to to this show, it's always that thing that we sit back and we let it ponder in our minds. Sometimes we're always thinking, are we taking too long to react? Should we react, or Or is there a time where, you know, depending on the circumstance, is it the degree of severity within that moment? You know, and believe it or not, you know, for me, I believe that there should always be a time to take a second. And I know that there are times where we might feel like we don't have that second, but just I think more or less about what is there to lose. So when you think about what your stage is, let's just say, you know, your work stage, you know, it's different than the stage you operate on outside of your place of business, which is your personal realm, where you're out at a restaurant, or if you're in the supermarket, or simply just walking down the street, and something that you feel is either threatening, you know, or offensive, you know, when that comes into play, is there a moment to where you can stop and think to react? And I use the word threatening because there's a difference between threatening and then life threatening, because sometimes you can turn what seemingly is just a threatening situation into a life threatening situation. You can deviate from a threatening situation because that's just a potential. You know what I mean? You can walk away and play what some would call you a punk, or you a chump, or you soft. But if you live to see another day, no, that could be the day you with your kids. It could be the day you with your lady, or you just out with the family, or the day you by yourself. And you know what I'm saying? And you might need to check it, like, you know what, it ain't even worth it in this moment, because you could be going home to those people. So it for me, it's like, you know, I think more or less it might be, and I say this loosely because we are men, you know what I'm saying? And we are the king. We're built as kings of our home, of our area, of our platform. I would say that it's necessary to take that second to think. So to answer your question, is there a right time? I think the right time is circumstantial, and it's also based on the person. You know, it's based on the person, who you believe you are, and how you view what it is you have. You know, what are the gems in your life? Is it ever worth losing it? Because the loss is always going to be greater than the gain, depending on how that play out. You know what I mean? Whether it be jail or death.
Yeah. Okay.
You know,
I understand. Ron, you want to speak on it? Or?
yeah, man. Because you know, I'm not going to answer the question, but I want to put out. You know, sometimes I think it's equally as important as answering the question as saying what it's not.
Okay.
And so when you talk about when is it appropriate, let's talk about when it's not. I don't think it should not be dictated by who's watching the situation. And what Brother Larry said is what made me want to make that point right now. And that is, he said, if somebody calls you a punk, you know, and that's why I think we should all at least come to the point as far as saying, listen, the people who are watching how we react should not dictate how we react. Because if you're going to genuinely take an action, it should be based on how you are feeling or how you categorize this situation, not based upon somebody on looking going, ooh, wow, oh, he did, oh, you going to let that ride? You going to let that ride?
All right. Hold on.
And now at a point in our lives, that meant a lot. You know, with somebody else, how somebody else viewed the situation meant a whole lot. But what I'm saying is today, when you're making that decision as to whether or not you're going to put hands on somebody or take a physical approach, it should not be based upon fear of someone calling you a punk or who's watching how you react. And I think going back to the Will Smith and Chris Rock situation, I don't know if it was the camera angles or maybe it was a delay, but to me, watching it, it looked like when Chris Rock told the joke, Will Smith laughed for a second. Now that's how I saw it. Somebody was like, no, he didn't. The way I saw it, he heard the joke, he laughed, he chuckled, he looked at his wife, she wasn't feeling it. And so to me, his action was based upon the how others were reacting. Others being specifically his wife. And
well, can I hold on? I got you.
Yeah.
But what about it's his wife though? That's the person he loves. That's the person he's supposed to protect. You see what I'm saying? So what about? And this is the same situation. What's the difference? Like, how can you say he couldn't do it? Like he did it for his wife. Like he was protecting her.
How was he protecting her when he was
So
he was laughing, bro.
all right.
I'm saying this is
So
a
hold
situation.
on.
Like,
So now that you put that, go ahead.
I'm saying,
You funny.
he laughed. So if there was an apology due, maybe it should have been from him. Like, you know what, sweetheart, I'm sorry. I didn't know it was gonna hit you like that. That would have been acceptable. But he laughing with Chris, in my opinion, he's laughing, he's chuckling it up, and then he stopped, like, oh well, no, it's not funny. Now I'm gonna go up here. No, if that man was wrong, you were wrong as well. And because you looked and you saw the hurt, and I understand, but I think what happened is exactly what I'm talking about shouldn't happen. His action, his reaction was based upon how others were going to view him. Because now he was like, he had to save face.
But that's his wife, though.
Okay, so hold on. So I'm glad that you say that.
It's different from
So I'm
people on the block.
I'm glad that you say that.
It's his wife.
I'm glad you say that. So now we discussed this. So now let's take that situation and put that into perspective in an everyday, because we talking about some rich folk
but that's what I'm saying.
Who deal with their disagreements different. Because don't get it twisted. It was a big thing, considering that they're rich, number one. Two, they famous. You know what I'm saying? So you figure, you put those things into perspective, you would think that would come out in TMZ, happening behind the scenes and not directly in front of the camera real time. Yeah. So that's what made it a big thing. But then you take that and spin that into our everyday regular life, and that smack just don't go away.
Exactly.
So when I'm thinking defending my wife, I'm thinking for me, like, no, do I expect her to be able to embody certain rhetoric coming out of the mouth of another person, another man being disrespectful, calling out her name, that things of that nature? Of course, at some point, I'm going to have to do something.
Yeah.
However, I think in the grand scheme of things, we are both still in a place to where we have to really look at, do these words, or is this situation calling for me to tell you to go home and possibly wait to see if I make it back? Because that's where essentially it's going to go. The Chris Rock, Will Smith situation is not going to turn into that. They're not going to be no fisticuffs. You're not going to hear gunplay. It's not going to be next time I see you. It ain't going to be none of that. But where we come from, it's going to be all of that. It's going to be all of that and then some. As soon as the hands go up, they don't come down until most times, where, especially in this time, somebody get laid down. So you got to ask yourself. So now when we present that question, speaking to what you're saying, Brother Ron, it's more or less when is it not called for? Yes. When you got the crowd like oohs and the ahs and all of that, we should be man enough and old enough to not be in a space to allow that to move you. Now, I also feel like, depending on the person that you are, and depending on like who I am, I would think that I would like to believe that the person you find to be your wife, your life mate, is gonna be somewhat on the same page as you, into where you see things from a perspective that's similar. So she might be in a space to be like, you know what, babe, that. We ain't even gonna waste no time on that. Let's go. Leave that alone. Now, if she the type that want to smoke, I'm assuming she's gonna believe that that's the type of person you are. So then y'all might both need to check yourself in that moment and be like, all right, I'm gonna say something, but you do know this could very well go left. Like, it might not stay at words. So manning up, I think a part of manning up, or when to man up, that word man has to play in there by definition. Like, what does it mean to be a man? It also means to not just be a brute and be of this large stature of bravado, but also be cognitive and be aware. Have a mental game as to how you want this to play out, because it can go to 100 real quick, skipping everything in between.
And I agree, but what I'm trying to say is, a lot of times the battery in the back is your girl. You know what I mean? Like, that be the person who's getting you into, not meaning who feels offended and feels you have to stand for her. You know, in that situation, what do you do?
A man has to stand on his word and his beliefs, his morals. For instance, Off-City, you and I, we go to a gentleman's club, a strip club, and we have a good time. We have a great time. We come home, and then your wife says something like, you know, that is barbaric. You know, you guys, anybody who does this, you know, you disrespecting women, you this, you that. Because she has a problem with it.
Yeah.
And you and I just had a ball in it, and then you flip it on me and be like, yeah, I tend to agree with you, sweetheart. This, you know, men, they have no respect for women. They this, they that. You start going this. Now, how am I going to look at you? 20, 30 years ago, I'd have called you a sucker. Now I call you a hypocrite. You know, I mean, because you just flipped on me.
Yeah.
You didn't stand on what you believe because you allowed your wife probably not to change your mind, but you faking it. You're not real anymore. Because, you know, now maybe you want to keep your household cool or whatever. You know, that's a different show. You know, happy life, happy wife, all that kind of stuff. But what I'm saying is you just flipped it on me. You just went and enjoyed the whole show. And now, because she's frowning on it, you've just changed your whole perspective. And that's not what we want men to do. Now, I'm not saying a man can never change his opinion, but it should change after some thought. Maybe, you know, and some, you know, maybe he can be influenced, but there should be some thought, not just all of a sudden he flipped it. So that's what I'm saying. To me, that's how I look at Will Smith. You know, and I agree with Brother Larry. That was Hollywood. You know what I'm saying? First of all, as Larry said, you put hands on somebody, you definitely, number one, you're not going to turn your back and walk away, which is what Will Smith did, because this was Hollywood. If Will was back in Philly, he would have never done that. You know, you slap somebody, you take your stance. You ready? You ready? Because
listen,
you know,
Brother Ron, they even went as far to say it was a sucker move, considering they went as far to make a joke out of it. Like, didn't we just see him in I Am Robot doing pull-ups with no shirt on, and you go smack Lil Pookie? They went as far to even go there. Like, you was a sucker for even, like, it was like he bullied, like it was the bully picking on the little dude. They was like, yo, if that was The Rock, would he have smacked him? Yeah. If that was, you know what I'm saying, Mike Epps, if that was Mike Epps, who we know, you know what I'm saying, he not rap right. Like, if that was a real dude standing there, would he have went that route? Who knows?
So y'all saying Chris Rock ain't a real dude? He from Brooklyn.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, the way. No. What I'm saying is when you mention Hollywood, in Hollywood, all we know is who you're represented as in Hollywood. So Will Smith, Chris Rock is a comedian. What he does is funny movies. He's never been in the movie where he's like the super serious guy. Like, he's not ever in a movie of where he's playing a character of bravado, where you never have to see him bulk up to play a part. Like, he not that guy. Yeah. And then you look at Will Smith, and that's his portfolio. He is that guy. Like, the only funny thing we associate him with is his show, Fresh Prince. Outside of that, that's it. So when you put the two together, we're not talking about necessarily who they are in real life, because we don't know them in real life. But to Hollywood, it's like this. It's like the mean, you know, Will Smith, who plays all the action heroes, picking on the little guy, the comedian, and that's the way they portrayed it.
He grew up in some section of Brooklyn. I don't know.
No, he Brooklyn. Yo, hold on. First of all, Chris Rock, you listen, I'm gonna tell you how you can tell the man that Chris Rock is. He didn't say nothing. His brothers said everything.
Yeah, his brothers did.
They was like, I just want you to know it's on site. I want you to know if you walk into a venue where I'm on stage, guaranteed that show over.
Yeah.
I'm gonna see you before the show even get kicked off. It's me and you. It's on site. The brother that's Tony Rock said it. That's not a comedian. He got brothers that's not comedians. Like, oh, you smack my brother. So to bring it back to the point of when is it a time to man up? I mean, we can talk about us in the generation that we're in now. I'm going on 40. Ron, you're our elder. You're 50 plus. You know what I'm saying? City, you come on. You know what I mean. Don't do that. All right, Ron, you 49 and a half. Ron 49 and a half. 49 and a half. He right there. He 49 and a half. We ain't crossed the threshold. You know what I'm saying? Everybody can be a half. And City, you the youngest of the three, but we all understand that we're in the era that we're in.
Yeah.
The idea of manning up is way different when you compare it to the era that we essentially speak to every show and even off the show, which is the younger era. The era where manning up is definitely life-threatening, more so than anything. That young era that we're in now, that microwave era, the drill music era, where everything is, sex, drugs, and money. The women is gang and all of that. So in that era, the idea of manning up is critical. The definition of being a man and when to stand your ground 10 toes down, head up, is different. They square their shoulders for less. It don't take much. You know what I mean? The way we understand it is back in the day, you can get a fair fight. Yeah. The worst it would be you having to fight off a few other guys, but you'd be able to walk away from it with your life. Now, during the fight, someone dies because the weapon is at the fight.
Yeah.
The weapon is present during the time of the man up. Yeah. And we're not even questioning whether or not manning up is necessary. It's everything warrants me representing the man I feel I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me say something. We're talking about it. So when we say man up, I meant to bring this up. Are you not manning up if you walk away? To me, that was the point. That was the point I was alluding really
to.
Manning up. Like
that was the point I was alluding to earlier, where even no understanding that if you choose to do nothing, that's the cognitive part, where you stop to take a second and say, you know what, living to see my family another day, understanding my responsibility to my family, to my village, is way more important than this moment that I'm going to take for fisticuffs or possibly death or serious injury for the sake of something that might not be worth it. Yep. So to your point, Ron, that was what I was alluding. That 1 second, that split second to just think, is this worth it? Like, am I going to be less of a man if I walk away from this? Because I could be a dead man.
And I think, just self-preservation is certainly key, but also just recognizing that this young person doesn't need to deal with what he's trying to get me to bring to him. Sure, yeah. So I have a greater love for him than maybe he has for himself right now. Because, if I unleash this, it's going to be a problem. And, one of the things that we can't lose sight of, scientifically, just throwing the science out there, I was just checking to make sure, it's believed that the brain doesn't even fully develop until you're at least 25 years old. Yeah. So let's talk about the 18-year-old, the 19-year-old, the 21-year-old guy who's now legally...
The 14-year-old.
Yeah. Let's talk about a guy who's legally able to drink. And now he's in that situation and he's got alcohol, brain not fully developed, and then the brain that he has is under the influence of something that's impairing his judgment. And my point is, the point I'm making is, we have to really count up the cost of everything that we do or choose not to do. What is the cost? And I think that 18-year-old, that 14-year-old, that 21-year-old, they can't even begin to count up the cost of what this act is going to cost me in terms of maybe, as you said, my life, my livelihood, my freedom. You just don't know. And when you're that young, you're not thinking about that. You're not. Because when I was 18, 21, I thought I was invincible. Nothing could happen to me. That stuff happens to other people. And I think that's one of the issues that young people have, whether you're talking about getting a COVID vaccine. I need no COVID. I'm not gonna get no COVID. If I get COVID, it'll be like a bad cold. That's about it. Until somebody dies. Yep. And then it's like, wow. Well, he must have been sick anyway. Because when you're 18, your brain doesn't function right. I'm just saying scientifically, you're just not really thinking things through. So I just want to point that out, that maybe, just maybe, we have to just speak a little bit on the fact that we're dealing with a group of people that just don't have the ability to maybe think it all the way through to really evaluate what's important versus what's not important. Because I promise you, what was important to me at 21 is not important to me at 51. It's just not the same.
Yeah.
City, if I wanted to present this question to you, City. I wanted your opinion on this. So, what would you say? Because I know, like, just from the idea, I think about the men on the panel, and the way you orchestrated this group and you put it together, and you chose us all for specific reasons, and you knew, you foresaw how we would collaboratively work together, and you chose Damo. And I know that you're really in tune with, like, the younger generation. Like, you always speak to it so sincerely. So, just if I could ask you and pick your brain for a second, for the world to hear, the greatness that you've given us on the topic of just the youth. Like, what would you say is that missing element when speaking to them, when we're trying to define the idea of just being a man, to someone like Brother Ron said, who's probably mentally not even developed? Like, what are we either, I don't want to use the word missing, but what are we not grabbing? What tool are we not using when speaking to the youth, on trying to get them to establish just their own position, where they are, whether 14, 18, 21, to where being a man isn't all about, being, that bravado, or the world seeing you as a man, but more or less, what are we missing when we speak to them to try to help them promote themselves, the man within themselves, if that makes sense?
No, it does. What do I can't really tell you what it is, but what I do, I just try and show them that there's always a different way. Like, I try and show them, like, now, today you might be getting teased because what your homies is saying and all that, but tomorrow, if you really focus and stay on track, your homies will be looking up to you. You feel what I'm saying? I got this from Charlemagne. I try to be the change. I try to be the change in the world I want to see. When I say that, I just try and be who the best me, and let everybody see me just being the best me. I have some young dudes in the hood all the time. I talk to them all the time about issues that they feel is a problem with them. What they feel is an issue, and I just try and talk to them and try and help them, guide them through their situations. You know what I mean? Like, and that's something I always do, though. I'm always been a counselor type of person, like, to help a person get through, and just doing that, I speak to a lot of young dudes, and it's just the same thing. They just want to be heard. It's just basically, I think everybody just want to be heard and want their voice to be, want to feel like they're somebody. You know what I mean? Like, when everybody go through an issue, everybody goes through a problem, and everybody feels the problem is the worst in the world, and it's you know what I mean? Oh, I can't deal with it. It's everybody just goes through it. It's just, I try and be that light. That, okay, they go hope a light. I could go that way. You know what I mean? Like, that's just really what I try and do, and that's how I live my life. So, with that, So,
Brother Ron, from the legal standpoint, because I know, you see a ton of different things from this perspective. Like, what would you say, like, when you sit down, if you have ever, sat down with a young brother, trying to figure out, how did you get here? Like, how did we get here? How did you, what did you feel what needed to happen? Why did you feel what happened needed to happen? And now this is the space that we're in, to where instead of living life, you're fighting for it.
When the craziest thing is, the younger generations. I mean, and when I say that, I'm talking about guys that I dealt with 10 years ago versus guys that I'm dealing with now. Totally different in the way they see the world. Totally different. And for instance, the young guy, the guy who was in his 20s 10 years ago, deterrent was a big thing with them. What I mean is that fear of going to prison, fear of going to jail, shaped a lot of decisions. Sometimes they still made bad decisions, but they had a healthy fear of not wanting to go to prison. They just did not. Young guys that I talk to now, not concerned with going to jail, not concerned with loss of taking somebody else's life or the loss of their own life. And so, one of the things that, that they don't have answers as to why they're doing what they're doing. But to me, that's one of the biggest things that we have to recognize. And when we're trying to talk to folks, whether you're counseling or just trying to get an understanding, you have to know what motivates people and to take certain actions. I think everybody on the panel, a lot of times we didn't take certain actions because we didn't want to pay the consequences. We didn't want to go to jail. We didn't want to risk losing our lives or those types of things. So the thing that really irritated you, you step back a little bit. The guys that we're talking to now, they don't have those same kind of concerns that we did. Now I'm sure there are some, obviously, but I'm saying for the most part, a lot of these young guys, and I don't know how they got there. I'm just telling you where we are. They're just, a lot of them will just do whatever they do and not even be concerned. And to their credit, they will, you don't see these young guys, they're not crying when they get locked up. Yeah. They're not crying as far as going, oh no, I should have done this, I should have done that. No, they're just like, whatever, it's gonna be what it's gonna be. Yep. Let's go. And that's a dangerous mindset. And it's almost like, wow, have we cheated these guys where they're not even concerned with living? Have they felt like, hey, I'm just living for the moment. I'm not gonna make it to be 30 years old anyway, so I'm gonna just rock out now. And so I'm wondering, for a young person to feel that way, we have to take some ownership in that and recognize that there's something that we have done to make somebody feel that.
So let me present this then. Because we talk a lot, like all the topics that we've spoken about all somehow tie back into the family front. What can we say manning up looks like within the family perspective? Because within that we can very well kind of tie it into how we got to the mindset of those that are in the street now, speaking to that particular mindset that you just mentioned, Brother Ron, to where there's a lack of care for someone's life, their own life. There's no degree of emotion or sincerity or empathy or sympathy. So maybe we should target, what does manning up look like within the home, within the family, like as a husband, as a provider, as a father, as a brother. Like, what does how would we define manning up in that realm? What does that look like?
But no, let me speak to that real quick. Just for guys my age, and as far as what was our influence, what showed us, what gave us a depiction of manning up, and just speaking on it from the television, because we, of course, some of us were able to have role models in our home. Some were not, due to whatever circumstance, whether they left. My father was murdered. But there's a lot of different circumstances. But on television, the Black shows where you saw fatherhood, a lot of guys my age were greatly influenced by the TV show Good Times. Good Times, obviously, hopefully everyone has seen it, but if you haven't, it was a family growing up in Chicago, mother, father, 3 children, struggling in the projects. But the father, number one, was in the home. Number 2, he provided for his family, worked very hard, but mostly he gave us a definition of what manning up was supposed to be. At least, and that was in taking care of his family. But if there was ever a problem, he handled it. If you disrespected his wife, he was ready to grab you. If you did something to his children, he was ready to grab you. And so guys my age, we were greatly influenced by John Amos played a character called James Evans on Good Times. And that's what we saw. Now, the risk of manning up physically wasn't the same then as it is now. There was no, he might have grabbed somebody, He grabbed him, he put him in place, and that was the end of it. There was no risk of gunplay. There was no risk of taking a life or someone taking your life. That wasn't it. And whenever he did it, he got pushed to that point. So guys my age, that's what we saw. That's how we were influenced as far as, hey, this is what a man should be. Those 90s babies, they may have saw Cliff Huxtable on the Cosby Show. That's what they saw. It's like, wow, this guy raising his family, successful, helps his kids with their homework, very active dad, so they saw that guy. Now the question is, what are they seeing today? What are we seeing? As far as a father in the home, I don't know. I haven't seen it. So I mean, that may be part of the problem. I mean, I'll ask you guys. I mean, I hate to ask this question, but who were you watching growing up, Larry? Who were you watching off city? I mean, as far as a dad.
Well, okay.
Wow. I'm gonna let you go off city. I'm gonna let you go first.
All right,
please. I'm gonna let you take that one first.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to take this one. People I watched was Martin. Fresh Prince. Like, those are the family shows I took key in. What is Parenthood? People who don't know sleep on Parenthood. Parenthood. That was a show, like, taught me a lot. What is it? Just a lot of those shows, but it's also shows. It did. Like, a lot of those family shows did, but I also learned a lot just from, like, the normal TV shows as well, like Power Rangers and stuff like that. Like, they don't have shows that actually give, like, that drops a little knowledge while you're learning. I don't feel nowadays. It's mostly, they don't really teach you anything on the cartoons and shows like they have nowadays. But shows I grew up on, yeah, hey, I loved it. Go ahead.
So for me, so you brought up a few shows that made me laugh. The Cliff Huxtable joint. The Martin one was probably the most relative.
Yeah,
Martin was probably the most relative because you got to see, and I don't even know if Martin Lawrence in his comedic genius, if he was even aware, and I'm sure he probably was, of the different variables and the different battles that he brought up in his show.
Yeah.
And he took it from phase one all the way through the battle of trying to get to know the woman, how he got her, to build the relationship, battling with the best friend, being a man, it's a man thing, Gina, with his homies. And then the big one, the very big one, which is, do you battle for your wife?
Yes.
Against your mama?
Yes.
So let me tell you, let's touch that real quick. Let's lighten up the load, because we've been so serious this whole time with the streets and all of that. Let's lighten this up and get some comedy in here. Do you battle your mama when it come to your wife? And all I'ma say is this, and I know my mama not watching, so it don't even matter. Me and my mama putting gloves on for my wife. I'm telling you, because my Bible, I love my mama, but my Bible tell me to cleave to my wife.
Yes.
And my mama got to let me go.
Yes.
So if you holding on while I'm trying to move on, mama, I can't stay with you. So you're going to have to put some respect on my wife, because the way I love you, I would hope that you would understand that you were the one who taught me how to love her. Now, I can't deal with nothing that got you and my daddy done been through. That ain't my business. If my daddy is not a resemblance of who I'm trying to be today, I am sorry. You gonna have to go put them gloves on and fight my daddy yourself. Good luck. I will be your corner man though. I'll be your corner man though. He ain't gonna be able to do too much. I'ma jump in and throw a shot in every now and then to give you the advantage. But in the world of my wife, they gotta exist in two separate places. So yeah, me and my mama gonna have to go. We're gonna have to go toe to toe, because I can't have that.
No, I understand. I wouldn't have that issue. I don't know. So far, I can honestly say my mother's been cool. Not meaning like she's been cool, but she loved me enough to let me do what I do. You know, she don't like it. She just hit me on the side like, "Hey, this one ain't good for you. I don't keep it. You know, keep your eyes open." Da 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 da. You know, so I haven't had that issue. So,
So how many wives can you have in their lifetime?
how many? Ooh.
Versus how many mothers are you going to have?
That's true. You
Indeed.
can have more. You can have
You have multiple wives. You only
just
gonna get
asking.
one mama.
You only,
Only gonna get one mama.
Only gonna get, if you lucky, you get one good.
Right.
If you lucky.
Yeah.
True.
If you're lucky. I mean, you know, some people never even got to know this. So if you're lucky, you get one. Now, just we call other people Mom Dukes, Mom, she's like a mother to me, this and that, but you only gonna get one.
Gonna get one. Absolutely.
Now, on the wife's side, you might, you know, let's just talk about in this culture where it's acceptable just to have one.
No, you can't even say this culture. No, because it's polygamy nowadays. They got multiple. Nowadays, polygamy is the shit. Like,
you're a fool.
My language, but it's
you're a fool.
It's the
You're
truth.
a fool.
You know how many people? Come on.
I'm saying legally in this country.
It is still legal. You know how many? Come on. You know how many people are having my girlfriend's girlfriend or my wife's wife? Like, come on, sister wives. Nowadays, that's a new thing. But
it's
only get one mama.
But I'm saying you can. But even no matter where you live, you can get a new one. You know, God forbid something happens to one. You may be blessed to find another one, or things don't go well. So I appreciate what Brother Larry said. I'm not disagreeing because that's clearly scripture. The brother came from the scripture, so he came. But what I'm saying, I'm just pointing out the fact: you only gonna get one mom.
Okay, so let me say this. Because I had a question presented to me. Is there anything off limits when defending your wife to your mom? That was a question presented to me. Is there anything off limits? And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to speak from my own experience. And I'm going to say respectfully, as a man, if my mom, now the relationship between me and my mother is solely just that. There should be no outside influence, no inside. It's just me and her. I am her son. She is my mother. The man that I am, she is more or less responsible for. So when I think of the idea of me even wanting to pursue marriage, pursue a woman to be my life mate, it is somewhat an extension of the relationship that I have with my mom. The idea that I've learned to love a woman in such a way and understand a woman that I want to now give that love in an intimate way and create my own love and world surrounded within that love with someone else. That's why I say when I speak to fighting, or when I speak to going, fighting for my wife to my mom, it's only because the only tools that I have, the only weapons, for the lack of a better phrase, that I have to go into battle in that realm with my mother are all the tools that she has given me as a man to even love someone so endearingly. And so when I think of, to answer the question to the person that asked, because I know you're watching, Danielle, thank you. Like that, is there anything off limits? I don't think that the term limits is the right phrase. I think when defending my wife, it's a degree of respect that I'm constantly battling for. I want you to respect my wife. I'm not asking you to love her. I'm not asking you to like her. Loving me should be your gateway, your path to respecting her, and vice versa. But as my mother, your obligation is to me, and what is an extension of me. So there is no limit to what I'm going to bring to the table for my wife as your son, because I am now battling for me. This is my life. So whatever it is that's toxic that you might be contributing to a union that I'm trying to create is an offense to me. It is you hurting me. It is you doing me a disservice because I'm only utilizing what it is that you've provided me with, whether in the presence or absence of my father, because I understand love through my mother. I understand that degree of emotion, sincerity, empathy, sympathy. My father tell me put him up and don't put him down until he ain't getting up. My mother says, if you can share love and give a hug, tell him you miss him, praise him, promote him, support him. Don't knock them when they down. Pick them up if they need them. My mother showed me God. My mother, it was God. God used my mother to introduce for that introduction.
Yeah.
So when I think of my wife, everything that is scripture, that's biblical, God used my mother to introduce me. So when I think about my wife, that battle is easy. The minute I met my wife, that was an extension of the God that you introduced me to. Mm-hmm. So you then can't step into a realm to make this union difficult, because you're telling me that everything that you taught me, something in there ain't right, and I don't believe my word is wrong, because God said it wouldn't come back vain. So if it's written, it's document, it's doctrine. And I with that I yield. We got 5 minutes, y'all. Let's wrap this up. Manning up in your home, in the street, in the school, on the job. Is it worth taking 2 seconds to think about it? Is it a 2-second rule? Do we got a 2-second rule? You're not used to drop food on the floor. You got a 5-second rule to pick it up before it's dirty. Is there a 2-second rule? 2-second rule on manning up to where we should stop and think and say, hey, if the loss is greater than the gain, then today I'm gonna take winning to lose.
Ron, you wanna go?
Sure, because you're gonna end it off. But let me say this. Going back to the topic, man up. When is it acceptable to man up? Every time. But we've defined, hopefully our goal was to define what manning up is. And manning up is showing that maturity to understand what is acceptable and versus what's not acceptable. Acceptable may be walking away. Acceptable may be allowing that situation to die down because that's what's appropriate. So every time, take the appropriate action, man up, show some maturity. And before I leave, I just want to touch back on that mother situation. Also going back to that word maturity. If you are blessed with a good mother, there won't be an issue between her and your wife, because she's going to love you enough. She's going to love you enough to say, that's my son's wife. So I have to take a step back. And she's not going to put you in that situation to say, choose me or your wife. If she's doing that, that's another issue. She's got a problem because she recognizes that this is my son. I want him to be happy. She makes him happy. Therefore, I am happy. I don't have to like everything about her, but I love the fact that she makes my son happy. I love the fact that she's raising my grandchildren the way they need to be raised. And therefore, any issues we have is not an issue. It doesn't even become an issue.
Preach, Ron.
The last thing I want to say, as far as with those maturity in relationships, one thing I tell my wife is we're getting ready to approach Father's Day. When Father's Day comes around, I never, for the entire time we've been married, I've never said, hey, you got to be with me and the kids, because I don't have another father to give you. So that's part of the maturity level, recognizing that people had lives before they came into our life, and those things are still of great importance. And with that, I yield.
Damn. Okay. With me, man up. Let's be honest. I used to hate this phrase. I hated this phrase before this show. Be honest, because I personally feel this phrase is just to get somebody to do something that they don't want to do. That's what I personally feel this phrase is. But since we redefined this phrase, I actually do like this phrase. I like the phrase, and I'm gonna say you all the time. You should man up all the time. Manning up means you should always be thinking about doing the right thing. How can I put it? Think above yourself. Think it's not just about you. It's always, you should always think about the world, if it makes sense. Meaning who you have to deal with, who's your responsibility, who's you loving, all that. Because if you do something stupid, it's not just you have to deal with the consequences. Everybody around you have to deal with those consequences. If you die, your children got to deal with that consequence. If you go to jail, your children still have to deal with that consequence. You know what I mean? If you don't come home, your children have to deal with it. So it's just not about you. And I love that we made this phrase, man up is to do what's needed to get done. I love it. So with that being said, I yield. Go ahead, Larry, brother.
Yo,
Larry,
let's wrap it up. I'm gonna wrap it up with this. Listen to all my young people, all of my young brothers out there. Please, if this moved you, please let this sink in, let it register and be written on the table of your heart. Manning up. There's always a time to man up when it is done properly, where your life is not in danger, where your freedom is not in danger. Manning up does not always mean picking up the gun, the weapon, or your hands. Sometimes it's just using that second to think about walking away and being safe, getting back to the people that love you. Yo, with that, we signing off. King Noah, Elijah, I love you. Life of Phoenix, Good People Council. Omar is for you, baby. With that, I yield. I'm out. I love y'all. I love y'all, yo. Good show. Great show, man.
Yes. All right, let's continue. We're gonna do Tough Stuff Productions and Father's Vision, PMP Prosperity LLC, Star City Cleaning LLC. Those are shout outs. Topic was crazy. In 2 weeks, we're gonna talk about. We're gonna leave that a little open. We're not gonna tell you because it's gonna be a little crazy topic. We don't want to die yet. You'll hear about it soon.
Yo,
see y'all later.
Love y'all.
Everybody know the thing. Living your left though. Walk in love and living your blessings. Have a good one.
That's right. Love.
Stand up, rise up. What you gonna do about it? Get your mind up. How you gonna